From New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
It's two sick engineers. We're both a little bit under the weather, so
Yeah.
we're gonna try to do this
We were
show.
gonna just, heads up, we were gonna cancel the show, but we're like, let's just do the best let's do what we can. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be moving slow.
So we're just a little
and,
slow, but we're gonna do it.
and we're gonna just try to uh hang in there because y'all are important to us. We want to get some new products out. We want to show some cool stuff. We got some
Yeah.
videos, got a lot of things. So
Okay.
we're just gonna do it.
All right. Well, we're still broadcasting live and sniffly from downtown Manhattan. That's where we do all of our testing and coding and shipping and soldering. We've got a full show for you tonight. Hopefully, we'll make it a full hour,
Yeah.
or at least very close to 1 hour, with lots of new products and videos, tutorials, INPI, and more, including a discount code, 10% off.
That's right.
Mr. Data, what's the code and what's on tonight's show?
The code is Analog Matrix, 10% off native restore, all the way up to 11:59 p.m. tonight, or when I remember to turn it off. We'll be talking about, some of the live shows we do, including Show and Tell on Disco Lady Ada. Great search. But we're going to do a recap video of JP's product pick of the week. We got some made in New York City factory footage. We have some 3D printing videos. We got INPI. Brought to you by DigiKey. This week it's Espressive. We got some top secret. We got some new products. We answer questions. We do that on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord. Join all 39,000 of us. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer.
Yeah.
Okay, so freebies. If you put stuff in your cart and you're using this discount code, you'll also notice you might get some free stuff.
That's right. At the Adafruit shop, when you buy from us, not only do you get 10% off, but you get freebie goodies. So $99 or more will give you a free PCB coaster with this beautiful gold Adafruit design on it. 149 or more. We still have some KB2040s available with the RP2040 chip, 4 megabytes of flash memory, castellated pads, USB-C, NeoPixel, and some buttons and QT port. It's Pro Micro compatible. It's a great way to upgrade your old Pro Micro projects. 199 or more in the continental US, you get free UPS ground shipping. And we still have Circuit Playground Expresses for $299 orders or more. We'll toss in our favorite microcontroller board that's round with alligator clip pads, 10 NeoPixels, SAMD21 chip, and buttons and sensors and all those good things. It's a great way to get started with learning electronics and programming because you can code it in Arduino or code.org CS Discoveries or MakeCode or CircuitPython or even MicroPython these days.
Yep.
So those are the freebies.
Okay, we do live shows. Just a reminder and a special thanks, Melissa, who did the show and tell. It was just on. Watch the highlights and more on Sundays. We do Desk of Lay Data, including the Great Search. And then on Tuesdays, we do JP's product pick of the week. JP, take it away.
It is the Itsy Bitsy ESP32. This is the version with the onboard PCB antenna. It has 8 megabytes of flash, 2 megabytes of PS RAM. There is no USB cable plugged into it, and yet I'm able to code it right from a web browser. I'm running CircuitPython code here. You can see I've brought in time, board, NeoPixel, and then Rainbow I/O and a color wheel. I'm setting up the onboard NeoPixel. I've set some little variables for some colors there. If I go and just change one of these, let's just change that to red, hit save. Again, notice no wires, right? And yet, I've just changed that. I've just saved the code.py file. We can change that again here. Let's go to blue, hit save, and Badoosh. The Itsy Bitsy ESP32 with the 8 megabytes of flash, 2 megabytes of PS RAM, and the built-in PCB antenna.
Okay, and don't forget JP's workshops tomorrow. And then Friday, deep dive with Scott, unless it's Tim. One or the two will be this Friday. All right, we're just going to move right along to Python on hardware.
Yes.
So the newsletter.
Okay, there's actually two things. I lied. I said I didn't want to talk one thing, but then
Yeah, you had a couple things that we were going to talk about. So the
Okay.
newsletter, do check it out. Adafruit Daily, subscribe. New hardware,
more
new
CircuitPython
software.
releases for sure. Sorry. We released 9.0 like last week, but immediately people start using it. We have bug fixes and stuff, so we're up to 9.02 and working on 9.1 beta, which has even more bug fixes and some cool stuff like I2S now. Used to be in our RP2040, you had to pick which pins in a certain order, but now it can be like almost any pin combo, which is kind of nice. The other thing that I thought would be cool to show.
Talk about the Pimoroni stuff.
Yeah, well, first off, the Pi Cascades, which is like this weekend. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Scott will be there.
Scott's gonna talk, and he's going to post slides. I think the video is going to be live too, as you can talk about Wi-Fi and BLE workflow for CircuitPython, which is a really nice way of working on project. A lot of boards that support CircuitPython also have Wi-Fi or BLE support, like the Clue and R52840 ESP32 series chips. And the web workflow is actually very powerful and very fast. And you can like transfer files and you can use the REPL and you can save and restart your code. So it's kind of like over the air programming, but without all of the like really complexity parts of over the air. You get to like dynamically change your code. So check it out if you're in Seattle, but also it'll be online. So you don't have to visit Seattle if you're not in Seattle.
Okay, and then we cover all sorts of hardware from our partners, from our friends, from folks that we just like. Hey, here's something cool that you might want to check out. So this week you wanted to talk about the.
I thought this was kind of neat.
The
So this,
Uphone.
yeah. So Unphone. So I'm seeing where people do projects with like LoRa as like a back end wireless communication protocol. So this is a board with like a 2.8 or 3.5 inch color TFT battery. You can click on this. It has an ESP32, I think S3 in it. And it was designed by Pimoroni, but for a university, and is used as like a the University of Sheffield, which is where Pimoroni is in Sheffield. So I thought that was kind of cool. A lot of these familiar components. I like this kind of an all-in-one design. And what's neat is that it runs CircuitPython, and we have support for the ESP32S3. We have support for the battery monitor, the TFT display, and the LoRa module. So it's like getting it working in CircuitPython was really easy. I bet also has like a feather adapter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was cool. I always like it when other people do hardware that is CircuitPython compatible, and I'm sure it works really well because
Yeah.
yeah, as you can see,
C++ or CircuitPython.
or CircuitPython. Some things are not in that list. I'm not going to say what they are, but I'm just saying CircuitPython supported. So check it out. And
Cool.
yeah, the S3 is with CircuitPython is great, especially with the extra PS RAM. So a lot of people were asking me like, oh, is there like are you going to make an S3 LoRa board? And I'm like, this we'll probably just stock this. It kind of does everything you want.
All right. Well, then this is our hardware pick of the week for
Yeah.
Python on hardware.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our highlight for the week. Get that delivered to your inbox every single week. Don't miss it. Adafruit Daily. Okay, let's do some open source hardware news.
Remember last week? We had 2,999 guides.
3,000 guides on Learn.
Now we're up to 3,002. Well on our way.
That's right.
4,000.
So thanks everyone for helping make this the best, most used resource online for electronic projects.
And here's the cool thing. So first off, every Adafruit product has a guide pretty much, which is great. And
Yeah.
we also have lots of project guides. Some things don't even use Adafruit hardware. We have like wearable projects and sewing and documentation and photography. And remember we had that guide series on how to run a hackerspace?
Yeah.
A lot of it is about
Maker businesses.
maker businesses.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And what I really like is these 3,000 guides are like real guides. Like they're not, like when I was younger, like I had a little like game thing and it was like 5,000 games. It was like the same game, but like the color palette was swapped.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's really only like 6 games, but they just like, they're like, oh, level 2 of Super Mario Brothers counts as a new game. Now,
Yeah, Lady Ada approves all 3,000 of
I've
these.
approved every single one of these
And
guides.
that's the thing is like we wanted a very curated. You know, we have playgrounds where it's user generated ones, but one of the things that we don't do is we don't do ads and we're not doing contests or anything like that. So what's happened in the like online tutorial guide space is a lot of companies, they're just built on doing deals with brands or whatever. So they're like, oh, enter, make a guide, and that's your entry for a contest. So you just get a lot of stuff that just doesn't work, never was meant to work, a lot of copy and paste stuff. So this is the resource when you buy hardware. This is what it supports. Pays all of our authors, pays the
Yes.
developers.
And this is like what I mean, I don't want to say like spend a lot of money on, but it's like a lot of engineering time is spent on the documentation and guides. It's really important.
So learn.adafruit.com. We're up to 3,000. Thank you so much, team. We'll play 2 videos that were in the Learn system this week, but let's first talk about which guides are in the Learn system this week.
JP just published his project on automatic mechanical watch winder. He's coming off of his AdaBox high, so he wanted to do like a project that wasn't, I don't say too complicated, but it was like pretty straightforward and fun. And he has, I think, a watch that needs automatic winding, but he's like, I'm not going to buy some like expensive watch winding thing. So this is a motor that you put your watch on and it rotates it. I don't know, it's like a good beginner project. We have from 3D Hangouts, the IoT battery monitor from Noah and Pedro. We'll show the video about that. But it's a 2-piece part. It's like a 2-part project because you can use it to charge batteries. Like if you have a battery, you can use it as a battery charger. Or if you have an IoT project that runs off a battery, you can use this to monitor it. And it just talks about like how to display it and send it to Adafruit IO, and then use the new Blockly actions to tell you that your battery is charged or dead. Also have an updated guide for the DPI display keepa because of Bookworm and Raspberry Pi 5 has changed some of the instructions. And so Melissa did a refresh of that guide. So it's definitely going to work on the Pi 5 and Bookworm. Erin did a massive project. We'll publish it making an LED festival coat with these cool like seed LEDs and WLED. The Magic Story book guide also got a big update. Now works with Bookworm Raspberry Pi 5. We've got the guide for the 2 SHT Trinkies if you pick those up. And lastly, we have this was the 3000th guide, was the vintage computer to HDMI with 30 DVI. This is actually a really cool project. So it's a computer that has 1-bit video output, like to RCA or whatever. And it's like the Xerox 8200, and not a lot of people have these old monitors. So he figured out like, oh, with the Raspberry Pi Pico, you can like bit bang read the image coming from the processor and then output it to DVI, also using the Pico. So using like all the PIOs, you're able to capture the monochrome data and then send it back out to HDMI. So it's like a custom HDMI converter for the Xerox 820. Very neat stuff.
Okay. And then the other thing is we have a couple of videos. So we're going to play those. This is the LED festival coat. And then I'm also going to play the Watchwinder.
Okay.
No particular order.
Your festival coat is about to get a serious upgrade. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to add animated LED lights to your favorite Wormy. Use the Feather ESP32 and the free WLED software to create gorgeous animations that run inside the fur trim that's the hallmark of any good festival coat. But this guide doesn't stop there. I'll also show you how to light up the body of your coat using a custom-built mapped LED matrix. Run 2D animations like spirals, ripples, and waves with just a few clicks on your phone. Check out the full build tutorial at learn.adafruit.com. And remember to subscribe for more awesome costume projects.
All right, and we're going to do some factory footage and then some 3D printing. See you on the other side. And that's made New York City factory footage. Okay, a little bit of a reminder, the code is Analog Matrix. Also get free stuff in the store. Let's go over to some 3D printing. We're going to do this IoT battery project and then 3D printing.
Okay, the 9 MPI afterward.
Speed ups. And then I'm going to go. Here we go.
You can build an internet-connected battery monitor for your Adafruit's Feather ESP32S2 reverse TFT using Adafruit I/O and CircuitPython. The Feather ESP32S2 with reverse TFT features a light poly battery charger and a max 17048 monitor for checking the battery's voltage and state of charge. For many battery-powered IoT projects, you may want to be alerted when the battery is charged or almost empty. You can use Adafruit I/O actions to receive an SMS text or email notification. The battery's voltage and percentage is displayed on the Feather's built-in color TFT. You can use the onboard buttons to cycle between an icon view or just plain text. The CircuitPython code checks the battery every minute and the graphics are updated with the voltage and charging percentage data on the TFT. The data can also be logged to an Adafruit I/O feed for later analysis. To learn how to build this project, check out the guide at learn.adafruit.com. You can set up an Adafruit action to receive a custom email when the battery is fully charged or if it's nearly empty. You can also use this as a handy tool for folks who have multiple LiPo batteries and want to quickly check how full or empty they are. The enclosure is fully 3D printed and features a tray for housing a 1200 mAh LiPo battery. The case also features an adjustable viewing angle so you can swivel it back and forth. We hope this inspires you to check out the Feather ESP32S2 with reverse TFT and CircuitPython for your next IoT project.
All right, we're going to jump right in. On MPI.
on MPI.
An API brought to you by DigiKey, and this week it's from Espressive. Lady Ada, what is the new product introduction of the week this week?
Okay, so this week, so normally I pick something from digikey.com/new, and this wasn't there, but I was personally interested in it, and it is kind of a new product, and we haven't covered a lot of Espressive chips. So I thought I'd show you guys what I've been looking at and studying recently, which is the ESP32C6. New chip series from Espressive. You know them for the ESP32 and the ESP32 S2 and S3 and C3. Well, the C6, it's not actually like that new. It's actually been out for like a couple months. But one thing I've definitely learned about Espressive is it takes about like a year until the software and firmware support for their chips and modules to be like really solid. So if you're at all interested in doing stuff with Matter or Thread or Zigbee, now's the perfect time to pick up the C6 because it's been about a year, and so the software is actually starting to firm up very nicely. So first up, the ESP32 C6 is part of their Wi-Fi chip family. This one has Wi-Fi 6 support as well as your standard Wi-Fi, everyday 2.4 gigahertz. It also still has Bluetooth Low Energy. But the new thing that it's added is, first up, instead of a Tensilica processor, it's using a RISC-V processor, which is kind of cool. Starting to really see RISC-V adaptation in companies, especially companies like Espressif that are based in Shanghai. And of course, the new thing is an 802.15.4 radio module, which can do Zigbee, but also can do just straight packet-to-packet communication with 802.15.4. And that's kind of interesting to me because all this also just shares one antenna, which is like really nice. It's all 2.4 gigahertz, all sharing one antenna. That's the hard part of the engineering, and they managed to do a really good job with about it. It also is a super low power processor. It's kind of an update to the C3, which we've used. It definitely has more RAM, which the C3 was a little bit lacking in. So it's kind of nice that they bumped it up to half a megabyte of SRAM. You do have an external flash chip, but the module that I was showing earlier, that the one that you can buy the individual chip, but they also come in modules ready to go with QSPI or flash memory inside of them. And so the module that we're talking about has 4 megabytes of flash. So far, there's no PSRAM support. I don't think the chip maybe doesn't even support PSRAM. So it's not meant for like really big IoT, like processing heavy applications. It's meant for low power, low cost, light applications, but still want all the peripherals that you would want with an Espressive. Also doesn't have as many pins as like the S2 or S3. It still has a lot, but like just to let you know, definitely has a little bit more than the ESP32, but less than the S2 and the S3. Okay. So like I mentioned, it still has the Wi-Fi support you know and love. It's got the Bluetooth Low Energy, does not have Bluetooth Classic, but it does have Zigbee and 802.15.4 like generic radio communication. And this makes it really good for use with Matter, which is this new I don't say protocol. It's like a system of connecting IoT devices, especially in home, but also in industry, that can use multiple different transports like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or 802.15.4/Zigbee. But Matter is kind of like the new standard that everyone is going to agree on, hopefully. A lot of companies have signed on to it. So like Google Home and Amazon will chat about AWS IoT, and the latest products from Apple all support Matter, which is meant to be like the easiest way to connect home automation devices. So if you are working in the IoT space, you're making smart light bulbs or temperature sensors or whatever, and historically you would have to have, a Zigbee or Bluetooth gateway. You might want to use Matter. As you see in the bottom, the reason I picked this is what's nice about Matter is it can use any transport. So 802.15.4 plus Thread or Ethernet or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. And you can use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi for Matter, but like I said, a lot of people are interested in using Zigbee because it's a low power, low overhead transport. If you're interested more about the differences in when you might want to use Wi-Fi versus Bluetooth versus Zigbee/802.15.4, this guide that we wrote, one of the 3,000 guides, we wrote this many years ago, but it's still very relevant. We have a whole section on Zigbee. At the time, it was like often 900 megahertz because we were using like XBs and stuff. But 2.4 gigahertz is really popular. And, there are existing non-matter protocols within Zigbee that you could use with the ESP32C6, like the Zigbee Lightlink, which is like supported by Philips Hue and family. So there are like profiles, I'd call them, with Zigbee, but to be honest, I think like most people are moving towards just using Matter. The problem is, like I said, you need a gateway. So if you do go this route instead of BLE or Wi-Fi, it's very lightweight, it's very fast to connect. It goes fairly far, but you do need a gateway. So people are going to, and part of what I did today was try to figure out, do I have a gateway? Turns out I don't. So you need like a Google Home, or you need an Echo or Echo Dot, or you need a HomePod or HomePod Mini. So almost all these devices that people use for like voice home automation connectivity, they'll have a gateway built in, but you do need to have one. Turns out my HomePod is too old. Okay, so one of the nice things though is, you can pick and choose which protocol you want to use based on your application, or with your device it can change to the different protocols. So like if you are selling a device, for example, you may want to use Zigbee because, say, it's the lowest power, lowest overhead, so longest battery life. But if the home that it's being used in doesn't have a Zigbee router, you could always fall back to Bluetooth or fall back to Wi-Fi. That's what's really nice about the chip supporting all three protocols. Also, of course, because it has Wi-Fi and BLE and Zigbee, it can act as a bridge, like in and of itself. So if you set up your device and it acts as like a Zigbee Matter device, it can also funnel other Zigbee devices to a Wi-Fi network if it's set up with the SSID and password. Okay, so the next thing is you're like, okay, this sounds great. I want to get in this. This is the new hot thing. Matter. It matters. You'll need to use the ESP SDK, also known as the ESP IDF. I think 5.2 is the latest version. I'll say at this moment, there's no Arduino support for programming Matter. So you'll have to use the bare SDK. Not that that's complicated. I think you can use Platform IO. They also have instructions for every operating system. But this is kind of like, this is a C++ path. You're going to have to make sure that you've got drivers, if you've got, your tool chain set up. It's a lot of command line work. Another thing you could try, which I did really fast, is there is a zero code interface specifically for Matter, but it also, I guess, works for other stuff too. That especially with setting up, which is kind of neat because I'm always into zero code writing. So this INPI also is covering a little bit of this. So they have a lot of different ready to go profiles that you can use. And as I was doing this, I was like, oh, I wanted to use the GPIO plug, just like indicate on or off, whatever. And then realized that they don't have the individual support for the C6 yet in zero code. They do for the C3, so the C6 must be coming soon. However, what you can do is, if you're interested, you can go through like their two-chip solution, which is called IoT Express Link. And from what I can tell, basically, you program the ESP32C6 as your Wi-Fi / Bluetooth / Zigbee Matter device, and then you can communicate to it via, actually, so go back one, communicate through another microcontroller, say your um, SAMD21 or your Renaissance or your Raspberry Pi, whatever. And one of the nice things is it also has a direct channel that it can send data to AWS IoT backend. So you can use all the AWS like IoT capabilities that they've been developing over the last couple of years, which is kind of neat. Of course, you'll have to have AWS account. You'll have to, pay for the services. But it is a way to get your temperature or humidity data or your control straight into a dashboard through this partnership that Espressif has with AWS. If you do want to do that, you pick, you can pick the module or the mini or the room. The mini and the room have different pins. Select which one. And then what's neat is that they're actually using web serial in a browser. So you use a Chromium browser, and then you can configure it. I skipped over the configure page. You can configure which pin you want connected to like the LED or the temperature sensor, whatever. And then you upload the firmware directly from the console, and it even generates the not shown here, the certificate that you can use to do the deployment of the sensor. And then there's a QR code that's tied to the identifier that's programmed into the device, because it's like on the fly, it compiled your firmware and configured it, and it burned it into your ESP32C6 over the USB port because it's got USB built in. And then you can configure the Matter device directly. Like I said, after many hours, turns out I do not actually have a Matter gateway, but I'm definitely going to try this next because apparently this like just works out of the box. And then you can use the AT command set through the USB port or the secondary serial port. And you can see here, like at the top in blue is what I send. So you say AT and it says okay, and then I mistyped some stuff. You can say AT plus Matter start, and we'll actually like begin the Matter protocol. And you can set characteristics and get characteristics and set alerts and get alerts. You can actually basically, you have like a Matter device that you can communicate with over AT commands, which means you can use any microcontroller or just your desktop computer if you want to just experiment with it. It's a very quick way to get started with Matter. And this like was amazing. It worked out of the box, which was kind of cool. So you can get dev boards, you can get modules. I suggest starting with the Wuru module because it's castellated pads. It's easy to solder to. Nice big onboard antenna. There's also a version with a WFL antenna. I think it's WFL, not UFL. So just watch out for that if you want an external antenna. And the best part is it's in stock. You can buy it right now.
Hello.
That's right.
Yeah, a couple questions since we're
Yeah.
doing this one different. Someone want to know what having microcontrollers just adopted 5 gigahertz.
I think pricing, I think, you know, that with moving to 5 gigahertz, you're gonna have to redo all of your analog front end. And honestly, I think Espressif really nailed down their like Wi-Fi setup. I think somebody once did a decapping and like analyzed the layout of their output stage for the Wi-Fi. And they're like, oh my goodness, this is like an amazingly engineered Wi-Fi analog, you know, the antenna front end. And that part's hard. And once you've kind of figured it out, you sort of kind of don't want to mess with it. I think that they will come out with 5. And like I think we covered INMPI. I think Nordic has a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi module. So you're going to start seeing it come out, but we're going to still see a lot of 2.4 for the next couple
All
of
right,
years.
and then with Matter, do you think we can have Adafruit IO hook up into it one day?
I'm definitely interested, right? Like that's one of the things I want to try is, you know, we have this app that we're working on. It's a Snap, and could it route Matter device data to and from Adafruit IO? You need an app to do it, because I wouldn't want you have to have some way to do Wi-Fi. Or if, you know, I can figure out, we would have the board be a Wi-Fi gateway. I don't know how to do it yet. But I think there's something there because I think there's going to be a lot of very low cost Matter sensors, especially with the ESP32C6, you know, being an all-in-one ready to go chip. Definitely I see it being a popular chip to power this new generation of Matter sensors for IoT.
And that's INMPI.
On MPI.
As folks noted, yeah, the AT command set is still
Works
alive and kicking. Speaking of, Analog Matrix is a code. 10% off in your store. Bunch of free stuff. Let's do some new products. Coming soon.
Okay, speaking of the ESP32C6, we have an ESP32C6 Feather coming soon. A couple little things I might want to change around it, but it's pretty much good to go. So if you want to pick up this board that will be ready to use with Matter, sign up. We're taking sign-ups. I don't know exactly when it's going to be in the shop when it's ready, but sign up. It'll also let me know how many to manufacture for that first run.
Next up.
Okay, we've got from Elecmakes. Oh man, I forgot their name. We have the Microbit Retro Arcade. This is for your Microbit V2, which has the NRF52 series. Does not work with the original. Sorry, Elecfreaks. Thank you. Not Elecmakes. Elecfreaks Retro Programming Arcade with the NRF52 on the V2 Microbit, the new version. You can run MakeCode Arcade on it. We love MakeCode Arcade. The only thing is that a Microbit does not have a display. It doesn't have enough buttons to do like arcade games. This is a beautifully designed little shield. Even got a battery pack, so it's nice and safe. Doesn't use rechargeable batteries. You plug the Microbit into the top, and you get your 180 by 160 color display. You get 6 buttons. You get Jack DAC, which is their plug and play system for adding sensors. It's got this nice curved, round, hand holdable thing. And the alligator clips are duplicated on the bottom, so you can
That's cool.
quickly add sensors. I don't know. I thought it was a really cute design. But yeah, like a lot of people have microbit V2s. But just I want to say it again. You need the V2. Will not work with the V1. The V1 is too slow to run MakeCode Arcade.
Next up.
Okay, next up, we got the Vivid unit in. This is from UU Gear. We stock a bunch of their Raspberry Pi stuff. This is not Raspberry Pi based. It's actually a Rock chip microcomputer on the back, but it does have a Pi compatible-ish pin out. So let's look at the back. This is jam-packed. And by the way, I'm going to forget some of the things that are on this board. It's got the Rock chip 3399 core processor. It's got a built-in speaker. It's got 2 USB 3 ports. It's got headphone out. It's got speaker. It's got SSD M2 NVMe built in, so you don't need a separate NVMe thing. HDMI, camera connector, looks like analog input, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, onboard microphone, onboard RTC battery connector, your gigantic power supply. Look at that huge inductor in there. So there's the power supply. Ethernet and the 2x20 connector. And then of course on the front, beautiful, I think it's 800 by 480 color pixel display. So I think this is, it's really cool. What's neat is you can tell it's a tablet display that they've kind of recycled, but like it's cool. So this is just it showing, I mean, it's going to be tough to see because it's a TFT, but it's a full capacitive touchscreen display. So you can like open up applications. You can open up.
Speedy operating system.
Yeah, it's very speedy. I'll say, I don't think I set up Wi-Fi on this yet, but it's got all this stuff built in. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's like a Raspberry Pi, but it's the similar kind of idea of a microcomputer, but it's got a display ready to go, so you can like easily mount this or use it with projects. And it's running Linux, so of course you can install Python on it. You can run Python on hardware. You can communicate GPIO. You can connect with I2C sensors. You can do quite a bit. It's like a powerful all-in-one microcomputer basically that runs Linux. So I think this is interesting. It's definitely going to be more expensive than just a Raspberry Pi because it's got all that stuff built in. But like you got capacitive touch display, and all the Ethernet and the Wi-Fi and the USB and the built-in speakers and the built-in NVMe. I think if you added up what it would cost to put this all together on something like a Pi, it would be more expensive. So if you are using all that stuff, this is good to go. And I like that it like boots immediately. You don't have to like burn an SD card or anything. It's got
Cool.
onboard memory, I guess. To be honest, I don't know how much. Look at the specs because I don't have it memorized. Yeah, it's in the shop. We have a couple. If people like it, we'll stock more.
Next up.
Next up, this is an update to the MHP 30. It's an MHP 50, which is a hot plate that you can use to do rework or reheating of small electronic boards. I'll say this came in today. I didn't get to grab one, otherwise I would show it off live. If you remember the MHP 30, that's the reheat plate that I've been using. It's 3 centimeter by 3 centimeter. This is 5 by 5, so it's like twice as much. Also, it can use DC or USB PD power. It's 100 watts over USB, 150 watts max over DC power. So it heats up very quickly. But you do need to get an external, like laptop-ish USB PD power supply. Also, the OLED's been updated to use a color TFT. I think I'm going to definitely pick one up when we go by the shop tomorrow, because if you have I've had larger boards like a feather board. I've had to kind of shove it around a little bit to make it fit on the MHP 30, but the 50 is basically the same price and bigger, but you need a better power supply. That's the thing. So if you're using DC power, you're going to need a 24-volt power supply that can do 5+ amps. And if you're using USB PD, you need a laptop power supply that can do 100 watts.
All right. Next up.
Next up, we have an RJ12 panel mount extension cable. This looks like Ethernet, but it's not. It's RJ12, also sometimes called RJ11 if it only has the 4 cables. This is for telephony projects. So if you're using the telephone cable, which is a 6 contact cable, RJ11, RJ12. This will definitely work well for you because you can panel mount it. What I like about these round panel mount cables is you don't have to cut a square hole or like a weird oval hole and have drills. You just cut one 30 millimeter round hole and up to I think a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch material. You screw the nut off the back. There is this, you can see at the bottom,
Yeah.
there's a lug nut, whatever, it's a protection nut. Put the cable to the hole, put the nut on the back, screw it in, and you're golden. And the lip covers up any like imperfections in the hole too. So this is kind of my favorite way of making panel mount connectors. So if you're using telephony cables, this is the way to go.
All right, I'm getting close to the start of the show. Not yet. Very close.
Okay. The ADG 728, this is an I2C 1 to 8 analog switch. So I think we had an analog switch a while ago that was like 1 to 2. You could like have the switch go like normally open, normally close, like a relay. This is kind of an interesting chip from Analog Devices, but it's like, it's hard to get I2C controllable analog switches. And so I thought this was worth stocking. So if you look at the front, at the top, there's 8 pins labeled S1 through S8. And at the bottom right, there's a pin labeled D. So the D pin can be connected to any of the S1 through S8 pins. But here's the thing, it's not like a multiplexer selector. You can connect multiple pins to the D pin. So it's like it's a matrix. You can actually connect like S8 to S3 to D, or S1 through S4 to D, or all pins connect together. So you can actually use it for merging signals, not just for selecting a signal. Although I think a lot of people use it for selecting a signal. You write the switches you want on via I2C. It's break before make, so you don't have to worry about things accidentally getting connected if you set all the pins at once. You basically just write the 8-bit value, and that whatever is a 1, it gets connected, whatever is a 0, it's not. There's 2 address pins to change the address, and a reset if you want to like immediately set all the pins to be open. So, what would this be used for? This isn't good for anything over 5 volts because the analog signal has to be greater than ground and less than the VN. So it's good for like up to 3 or 5 volt signals. So they're definitely good for analog audio signals because those are going to be like less than a volt. If you want to move around audio signals, this is definitely going to be the way to go. You don't get any clicking like you would with a relay, and of course it's instantaneous. Also could be used for some video signals, could be used for signals into a DAC. I've seen, these kinds of switches used for the inputs into, op amps if you want to move signals around. So this is there's a lot of pins available, 8 to 1, but basically this is kind of what was available. The only other thing we had was a one-way switch. This is a 1 to 8 switch.
Alrighty, and the start of the show tonight, besides you, lady, our team, our customers, everybody who makes this thing go is
the ADG 729, which is the sister of the ADG 728. Very similar, but a little bit different. So the ADG 728 had 1 to 8 switch. This has 1 to 4 switch twice. So 2 switches, so 2 sets of switches. So you see at the top, there's 1A through 4A, and then 1B through 4B. And at the bottom right, there is the DA and DB pin. So you can select any of the ACE pins to connect to the DA pin, and any of the B pins, any of the 4 B pins to the DB pin. So basically it's good for stereo analog signal switching. So good for audio, especially if you have, stereo signals and you want to move them around. It can also be used for video or like, sensor reading or whatever. And then don't forget, it's not a selector. You can connect multiple pins to the switch. Like each one has an individual switch. So you can have all the switches on, and that means there's 4 pins connected to the DA or DB pin. So that'd be good if you wanted to merge signals together, which you can do with this analog switch. And then of course it's bidirectional too. It's not like one way. It's not like, oh, the signal only goes from DA to 4B or whatever, or 4A. It's bidirectional. It's a full analog. Like it looks like a transparent 2.5 ohm connection between the switched pins and the DA or the DB pin. It's also it's controllable over I2C. So like the 728, you write 8-bit value, and that tells it which switches you want to have on. You can have all of them on, none of them on, some of them on. And then 2 address pins. And the only thing it's missing compared to the 728 is the reset pin. There's no reset pin because instead you have, the two DA and DB pins. So that's what got dropped in order to have the dual 1 to 4 switch. So both are, very similar and they use very similar code, but one is a dual 1 to 4 and one is a single 1 to 8 analog switch. Both useful.
That's right. All right. Well, we had a couple of questions lined up. Feel free to keep putting them in over on Discord.
Yeah.
We're gonna do some top secret, then bounce the questions, and we're gonna get out of here.
Okay.
Okay, Lady Ada, what's this?
Okay, I'm testing out these kind of interesting headers. We got a request to have solderless headers in the store. And so if you look, these look just like pin headers, but you see there's like this little like notch hole in the shorter pin. The way this is designed is that you could kind of like shove it into some holes in a breakout board and they would make contact using like a cold contact, not a hot solder contact. So you could do some quick prototyping and then you could remove them if you wanted to, but maybe, for times when you don't want to solder headers in. So the only thing I noticed is that you need to, kind of, it's a little bit tricky. You definitely want to have, the headers the right length. So let's break off piece and see if I can do this live demo. Okay. And then you want to get like a good grip on the header. So I'm using like these pliers. And then kind of wedge it in like so. Using the pliers to press down flat. And there you go. We did it. And then I actually checked. This is like, it's pretty solid. And it's got continuity. So the only trick is like you really need to use pliers or a vise to really get good leverage because you have to push them in. But it's okay that this one is like not fully pushed in. You can like give it a little bit more of a yank if you want.
There you go.
Yeah, and then you just adjust it. So, it's not easier than soldering, but you don't need a soldering iron. Anyways, these look good. So I'll put them in the shop.
All right, Lady Ada, what's this?
Okay, I'm doing bring up on a new feather. As you can see, it's the ESP32C6. This is a new chip in the family for Espressif. It's a Tensilica processor. Sorry, it's a RISC-V, not a Tensilica processor. And it has Matter Zigbee support. So I think it has Wi-Fi, and I don't think it has BLE, but it has Zigbee instead. So I made a feather for this module. It doesn't have a ton of pins, so like 1 or 2 of these pins are shared, but I did have a second LDO for low power on the stomach UT port, battery monitoring, battery and recharging, boot and reset button, and plenty of analog pins, SPI, I2C, UART, and all that good stuff. So I'm going to keep testing it, but luckily, because Espressif has like one board support package for all of their boards, NeoPixel just worked out of the box. So I'm going to test all the pins, all the peripherals, and then do some low power tests, and maybe we'll do another video.
All right, Lady Ada, what's this?
Okay, I'm testing out the new camera Pico Bell. This is a board that matches up with a Raspberry Pi Pico or Pico W to give you access to parallel camera and an SD card and a shutter switch and a stomach UT port. So this is how we used to wire up cameras for use with Pico. So you can see on this like breadboard, I've wired up all like 12 or 13 pins, and then I've also wired up a 240 by 240 TFT. And it does work, but boy, it is kind of a pain, and it's very messy and error prone. So now with the new Pico Bell, it's much more elegant. Here, it doesn't have a TFT, but I've wired up a TFT separately. You just plug it in, and it uses any of the cameras that have the DVP interface, which is like OV7670, 2640, 5640. So I've got a whole bunch of things tested, including taking photos and sending to the SD card, and of course mirroring, and also a webcam demo. So this is good to go. We're going to get this into the shop soon.
And that is top secret.
Okay, let's do some questions.
Yeah. Okay, for questions, a couple of them lined up and they already got answered in the chat.
Okay, but it's okay.
Yeah. So for the previous product, the question was, what's the max bandwidth works with composite? They checked the data sheet.
Yeah, bandwidth is 100 megahertz. It's from analog devices, guys. They know what they're doing. This is the good stuff.
Okay. Those snap-in headers, are they okay to solder in and after you snap?
Oh yeah, you can definitely solder them in. They're just like gold plate headers. They're just like tough to put. They're just like tough to put in. You know?
Question, is Adafruit doing anything for the Eclipse? We're doing the best thing, I think, that any company does. Our team has tons of paid time off, and a lot of people are taking
A
off
lot of people are taking off
and going to
go.
the Eclipse.
which is great.
One of the benefits of the company is people have great work life and great outside work lives. So folks are doing their own thing. It's we have some remote people, and then we have people in New York, and they're taking the time off, and they're going to go enjoy it with friends and family and more. And that's what I think is the most important thing. If it's an event like this where you can go somewhere, take some time off, enjoy it.
So we live in a solar system that has eclipses. I mean, like that's so cool.
Yeah, it's weird, I think, because our moon
It's like exactly
coincidentally
right.
needs to be a certain size for it to cover the sun. But if you have all these cosmic coincidences, of course, you're going to be like, well, that's weird because you're here.
Yeah.
Is it finely tuned just for us?
No, but I don't think that has anything to do with like eclipses. Like, there's some things where people are like, "Oh, isn't it great that water floats when it turns into ice?" It's like, well, if it didn't, we'd be dead. We wouldn't exist, right?
Yeah.
But the eclipse, I think, is just a cosmic coincidence.
There's a lot of them.
It's like a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one, but it's also just the distance that the moon happens to be. It's pretty weird. Let's see.
Any other questions?
No, this one they're just saying that they were doing some desoldering, so I need to do that as a question. And then let me just check over here. I think we're gonna call it because we're I'm dying.
I'm tired.
I held it together.
We're all dying, but like we're dying a little faster than others.
I held it together. I'm gonna.
Okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah, we're kind of sick. Okay, so we're gonna go.
Bye.
Thanks everybody. That's been our show. Don't forget the code is Analog Matrix. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday night. You get the free stuff, you get the code. This has been an Adafruit production. We'll see everybody next week. It's your moment of Zener.
Later.